Lionel Messi has returned to his hometown of Rosario, Argentina, following the heartbreaking death of his father, Jorge Messi, at the age of 68. Messi arrived in Rosario on the night of August 8, 2026, accompanied by members of his family, as he returned to the city that has remained deeply connected to his childhood, his football beginnings, and some of the most important memories of his life. The return came during an extremely difficult moment for the football superstar. Jorge Messi had reportedly been battling an illness for an extended period before passing away at a local hospital. His death marks a deeply personal loss for Lionel Messi, whose father was not only a beloved parent, but also one of the most important figures behind his extraordinary football journey. Footage from Messi's arrival showed his private jet landing in Rosario during the night. The atmosphere surrounding the airport and areas connected to the Messi family was notably emotional, with fans gathering to show their respect and support for the football icon and his family. For many supporters in Rosario, Messi's return was more than simply the arrival of one of the world's most famous footballers. It was the return of a son of the city who had achieved extraordinary success on the international stage, but had never completely lost his connection to the place where his story began. As news of Jorge Messi's death spread, supporters began leaving tributes in different parts of Rosario. Flags, football jerseys, handwritten messages, and other signs of affection appeared along fences and near locations associated with Messi's childhood and football career. The tributes reflected the special relationship between Messi and the people of Rosario. Although his professional career took him around the world, from Barcelona to Paris, Miami, and the biggest stadiums in international football, Rosario has always represented home. For fans, Jorge Messi was also an important part of the story they watched unfold from a distance. Long before Lionel became a global superstar, Jorge was the father who accompanied his son through the early stages of his football development and helped guide him through the enormous challenges that came with pursuing a professional career. Jorge Messi's role in Lionel's life extended far beyond that of a parent. He eventually became his son's agent and was closely involved in the management of Lionel's career. His support was particularly important during the formative years when Lionel's extraordinary talent was beginning to attract attention. Lionel Messi grew up in Rosario and began developing his football abilities at a young age. One of the most important chapters of his childhood came through Newell's Old Boys, the Rosario club where Messi played before eventually making the life-changing move to Spain. His connection with Newell's Old Boys has remained an emotional part of his identity. The club's stadium was also featured in footage surrounding the tributes following Jorge Messi's passing, providing a powerful reminder of where Lionel's football story began. For a young Lionel Messi, football was already becoming more than a childhood passion. His talent was becoming increasingly obvious, but turning that talent into a professional career required enormous sacrifice from his family. When Lionel was just 13 years old, the Messi family made the difficult decision to move to Barcelona. It was a turning point that would ultimately change the course of football history. The move to Spain was not an easy decision. Leaving Rosario meant leaving behind familiar surroundings, relatives, friends, and the community that had watched Lionel grow up. But the opportunity offered by Barcelona represented a chance for the young player to develop his talent at one of the world's most prestigious football institutions. Jorge Messi played a central role during this period. As Lionel's father and representative, he helped navigate the complicated circumstances surrounding the family's move and the beginning of his son's life in Barcelona. What followed became one of the most remarkable careers ever witnessed in professional football. Lionel Messi eventually developed into the face of Barcelona, winning major domestic and international trophies, collecting individual awards, and establishing himself as one of the greatest players in the history of the sport. He later continued his career outside Spain and ultimately achieved one of his biggest dreams by winning the FIFA World Cup with Argentina. Behind many of those unforgettable moments was a family that had supported him since his earliest days in Rosario. Jorge Messi was there during the years when Lionel was still simply a talented young boy dreaming of becoming a professional footballer. He remained closely involved as his son's career grew, helping manage his professional affairs while providing the personal support that only a parent can offer. That makes Lionel's return to Rosario following Jorge's death particularly significant. The city represents the beginning of everything. It is where Lionel first fell in love with football, where he developed his skills, where his family built their early life, and where the dream of becoming a professional player first took shape. Now, years later, Messi has returned to that same city under profoundly different circumstances. The footage of fans placing jerseys, flags, and messages along fences offered a glimpse of the affection Rosario continues to have for its most famous son. Many supporters chose to express their condolences through the language they know best: football. Messi jerseys became symbols of respect, while Argentine and club flags were displayed as reminders of the player's connection to both his hometown and his football roots. Handwritten messages added an especially personal element to the tributes, showing that the loss was being felt not only by Messi's family, but also by supporters who have followed his journey for decades. The scenes surrounding Newell's Old Boys were particularly meaningful. The club remains one of the most important institutions in Messi's childhood story, and references to the stadium served as a reminder that before he became a global icon, he was a young Rosario boy with a dream. Another important location shown in the footage was the El Prado Cemetery, adding to the solemn atmosphere surrounding Messi's return. For the Messi family, the days following Jorge's death are likely to be filled with grief, reflection, and memories. For Lionel in particular, the loss represents the departure of a person who had accompanied him through almost every stage of his extraordinary journey. Football fans around the world have seen Messi celebrate goals, lift trophies, and experience some of the greatest moments imaginable in sport. But behind those public celebrations was a private family story that began long before the world knew his name. Jorge Messi witnessed the transformation of his son from a talented child in Rosario into a footballer recognized across the globe. He was part of the difficult decisions, the sacrifices, and the uncertainty that came before the success. The move to Barcelona when Lionel was 13 was one of those defining moments, and Jorge's involvement during that period helped shape the path that followed. Today, Lionel Messi's story is often told through statistics, trophies, records, and unforgettable goals. But his journey also has a deeply human side. It is the story of a child from Rosario whose family believed in his dream. It is the story of parents who supported their son when the future was uncertain. And it is the story of a father who remained closely connected to the career of his son as that career grew beyond anything anyone could have imagined. The images of Messi returning to Rosario therefore carry an emotional significance that goes far beyond football. They show a son coming home. They show a family returning to the place where their journey began. And they show a community coming together to honor a man who played an important role in the story of one of football's greatest ever players. For the people of Rosario, Lionel Messi will always be connected to the city, regardless of how many trophies he wins or how many countries he visits. His success may have taken him around the world, but the roots of his story remain firmly planted in Argentina. Jorge Messi was an important part of those roots. As Lionel returns home during this painful chapter, the flags, jerseys, and messages left by supporters serve as a reminder of the extraordinary bond between Messi and Rosario. The city that watched him take his first football steps is now standing with him during one of the most difficult moments of his life. While the football world remembers Jorge Messi as the father and longtime agent of one of its greatest stars, for Lionel Messi, he was something much more personal. His father, his early guide, and one of the people who helped him take the first steps toward an extraordinary dream. And now, after a journey that took him from the streets and football pitches of Rosario to the biggest stadiums on earth, Lionel Messi has come home once again.